The end of the world. The world was on precarious ground following World War I. Germany was roiling with resentment due to its crushing debt and humiliation, and the rise of dangerous ideologies was exacerbated by political unrest and economic crises. The world sped toward a more deadly conflict that would permanently alter history as old empires fell and new powers rose to prominence. Germany and its allies are defeated at the end of World War I and are held entirely accountable for the conflict. The Ottoman and Austro-Hungarian empires are destroyed by harsh sanctions, and Germany is forced to pay back a debt that many believe is unjustified. Poland, which has been recreated, and the victorious parties receive its colonies and a portion of its lands. The German people consider these sanctions to be humiliating. Uncertainty in finances. In addition to hyperinflation, the German economy is weakened by excessive debt. To combat this, national mints print banknotes, which devalue the country's currency. The mark gained 1,000 billion in value between 1914 and November 1923. The following year, drastic steps are taken to stabilize and revitalize the economy and stop inflation. However, the worst economic crisis of the 20th century occurred in 1929 as a result of the New York Wall Street crash. Its effects are felt all over the world, including in Germany, where the unemployment rate has skyrocketed. Fascism and Nazism's rise. Germany is severely weakened, and in 1933, a rise in nationalism makes it possible for the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, to gain power. After World War I, Germany was subjected to severe restrictions, but the new totalitarian government resettled the nation and reinstated military service. To bring all German-speaking people together, the nation also launches an aggressive foreign policy. Italy is unhappy with the amount of land it acquired following World War I, even though it won the war with the Allies. Benito Mussolini's authoritarian fascist party has controlled the nation since 1922. Italy prepares to invade Albania and starts a colonial policy by capturing Ethiopia. Pre-war events. 3 years of civil war broke out in Spain between the nationalist camp, led by Francisco Franco, and assisted by Italy and Germany, and the Republican government, which was backed by the USSR and the international brigades. The two nations used the occasion to test their armies and strengthen their diplomatic ties. Japan is still pursuing its expansionist strategy in Asia. The nation uses China's civil war as an excuse to invade new areas. The Japanese army massacres people and uses biological and chemical weapons. Annexations by the Germans. Germany is now strong enough to begin annexing new territory. With the help of the regional Nazi Party, it initially annexed Austria. The invasion of Czechoslovakia's west followed. Hungary advances diplomatic ties with Germany, while the Slovak Republic becomes a German satellite state. Germany and the USSR signed a non-aggression pact and a plan to divide Europe after Germany occupied a portion of Lithuania. After that, it struck Poland, which prompted France and the United Kingdom to declare war, starting World War II. German dominance. The Allied troops do not take the initiative in the West, even though the German forces are concentrated in the East. Rather, the United Kingdom and France attempt to block the vital iron ore supply line that runs through Norway and feeds the German military sector. In response, Germany invades Norway and Denmark. The nation seizes Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg in a matter of days. Hitler's new military tactic, known as Blitzkrieg, used quick, intense attacks in a small area to surprise opposing defenses. The German army crushed Paris as British forces fled before this German military might. An armistice is signed after the French army is routed. The surrender of France. France's north and west are occupied by Germany, while the new government controls its other colonies and territory. As a result, Germany could indirectly rule French colonies without sending troops there. Parts of the Belgian Congo and the French colonies, however, decide to remain in the Allies' camp. General Charles de Gaulle establishes Free France in London, which already has several exiled governments, and it keeps fighting Nazi Germany. Its capital city is Brazzaville. Globalization. The Baltic states and a portion of Romania are taken over by the Soviet Union, in accordance with agreements made with Germany. The Axis powers are Japan, Italy, and Germany. Except for Ireland, all British colonies and dominions joined the conflict. Italian colonies and Allied forces start fighting in Africa. Germany fails to seize control of Britain while in Europe, even though British cities are heavily bombed from the air. After that, Hitler modifies his plans and decides to invade the USSR.
However, Italy delayed the plan by failing to invade Greece and being compelled to withdraw by Allied forces. When Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria joined the Axis, the German armies moved south to attack Greece and Yugoslavia. The resistance is organized in various ways throughout Europe. People occasionally plan protests and strikes or defend those who are wanted. Some organizations carry out sabotage, publish resistance newspapers, or spy for the Allies. Guerrilla forces are undermining the Axis armies in Eastern Europe. Royalist factions and recalcitrant communists clash in Greece and Yugoslavia. Anti-Nazi resistance is also present in Germany, where there have been unsuccessful attempts to kill Hitler. The Barbarossa Operation. The largest military operation in history was launched by Axis forces on June 22 to attack the USSR, which now de facto falls under the Allied forces' sphere of influence. Well-equipped and motorized, the majority of the German forces rush east. The Allies invade Iran to aid the Soviets, creating a supply line across the Caucasus. Over 1 million civilians would perish during the 872-day siege of Leningrad, which was initiated by German armies. German forces were halted at Moscow's gates further south, where they endured a brutal and fatal winter. The SS massacred Jewish and Slavic people behind the front lines. The Pacific Front.
French Indochina is occupied by Japan in Asia. The United States imposed an embargo on steel and oil to counter its expansionist policy. The Japanese launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States, in retaliation. A significant portion of the U.S. naval fleet is damaged by a massive aerial bombing. The United States joined the Allies in the war. They initially focused all of their forces on the Pacific Front. Additionally, the nation supplies the USSR, which is still thwarting the German advance. Japan, on the other hand, expands its territory in the Pacific. Human rights violations. 10 million Chinese civilians are sent into forced labor camps by Japan in addition to the massacres. Millions of prisoners on the Java island in Indonesia endure the same fate. Allied prisoners are worn out while building a railway line in Thailand and Burma. In addition, the Japanese army coerces hundreds of thousands of women into prostitution. Concentration and extermination camps are constructed throughout Europe to murder people with disabilities, Jews, resistance fighters, political opponents, gypsies, and homosexuals, among others. The pivotal moment Hitler constructed the Atlantic Wall, a network of fortifications defending the coastline against invasion, out of fear of a second front in Europe. However, Morocco and Algeria saw the first landings of the Allies. Italian Libya is torn between two opposing sides. Vichy France is invaded after losing authority over its colonies. Axis forces attempt to cut off the Caucasus's supply line in the east. However, the German offensive suffers a significant military setback for the first time. The Soviets launch a counter-offensive after taking the initiative. After organizing a landing in Sicily, the Allies now have complete control over Africa. The Germans invaded after the new Italian government called for an armistice. Europe's retake. The German army is forced to focus on the west as the USSR advances quickly in that direction. The Allies landed in Normandy on June 6, 1944. Paris is swiftly liberated by their armies. Both in the east and the west, nations are freed or change sides. With victory imminent, the United Nations was established by the Allied powers. At its founding conference, nations that declared war on Japan and Germany would be admitted. Although there are no significant repercussions, this leads to a surge in war declarations. The war's conclusion, Hitler ends his own life in his bunker on April 30th, shortly before the Soviets arrive. The nation gives up 8 days later. To defeat the Japanese Empire, the USSR and the US teamed up. As the US dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Soviet Union launched a military invasion through Manchuria. World War II comes to an end when Japan surrenders on August 15th.